What if you could see beyond the polished masks people wear every day and glimpse the truth they try so hard to conceal? What if the subtle clues hidden in their gestures, words, and silences revealed more than their loudest declarations? And what if mastering this ability didn't just make you wiser about others, but transformed your own soul into something unshakable? How to read people without them knowing. Most people live hidden behind walls of performance and pretense, yet their true nature is always quietly bleeding through the cracks. If you could see beyond the masks, if you could understand not just what people say, but who they are, how much stronger, wiser, and more prepared would you become? The Stoics believed that wisdom lies not merely in knowing ourselves, but in reading reality with uncompromising clarity. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Human beings are part of that reality, and if you can learn to observe them without illusion, you will walk through the world with unmatched awareness and power. In this guide, rooted deeply in Stoic philosophy, you will uncover 4 timeless principles to master the art of reading people without them ever realizing it. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Practice them not with arrogance, but with humility and discipline, and you will not only perceive others more clearly, you will transform yourself in the process. 1. Master the art of silent observation. In the hurried noise of the modern world, silence is a weapon. Most people rush to speak, eager to assert themselves, desperate to fill the uncomfortable gaps that presence often creates. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. But the Stoic student understands that power lies in restraint. To observe others without rushing to assert oneself is to assume the role of a quiet sentinel, a master of hidden strength. Watch how people move when they do not believe they are being watched. Study the patterns of their body language, the way hands fidget when a sensitive topic arises, the slight lean forward when interest is genuine, or the stiffness that betrays concealed anger. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Words are cheap, gestures are expensive, they are harder to fake, governed by the unconscious nervous system long before the mind can polish its performance. Silent observation is not passive, it is an active discipline, a form of engaged stillness. It requires the suppression of the ego's desire to jump to conclusions, to perform, to impress. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Cultivate this internal stillness first, then turn your clear and steady gaze outward. See how a slight hesitation before an answer reveals uncertainty. Notice how a forced smile freezes too long upon the face." This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. How true affection softens the eyes even before the lips move. In mastering silent observation, you begin to develop a second sight, not mystical, but born from pure attentiveness, where the reality of others unveils itself with surprising clarity. You become a student not of surfaces, but of essences. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Above all, remember that real observation is an act of respect. You are not watching to catch others in deceit, but to understand them as they are, without the masks demanded by society, without the performance required by insecurity. Silent observation honors the truth of human nature, refusing to either idolize or condemn. It simply sees. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. 2. Empty yourself of assumptions. Human beings are naturally inclined to project. We do not see the world as an island. We see it as we are. Every experience, every fear, every hope distorts the lens through which we interpret others. Therefore, the second discipline is radical and painful. You must empty yourself of assumptions. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. You must become, in the words of Epictetus, neither elated by success nor cast down by failure, and likewise neither eager to believe the good nor quick to believe the bad about others. Approach each person as a mystery to be revealed, not a conclusion to be confirmed. This is not easy. The mind craves certainty. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. It wants to label, categorize, simplify, but the Stoic understands that truth requires patience and discomfort. When you meet a man who boasts of his virtue, resist the desire to label him a hypocrite or a saint. When you encounter a woman who seems distant, resist assuming she is arrogant or broken. Suspend judgment. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Let reality present itself in its own time. In every moment, remind yourself, I do not yet know, I will not assume. Seneca wrote, the first step toward wisdom is knowing that you know nothing. This is the attitude required to read others truly. You must become humble before reality. You must sacrifice your hunger for stories and accept the slow, often silent revelation of truth. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Watch not only the person but your own mind's reaction to the person. If you feel anger, notice it. If you feel admiration, notice it. But do not let these feelings dictate your reading. Let them flow past like clouds while your mind remains clear, detached, awake. Only when you have emptied yourself of expectations, desires, and fears can you see others not as characters in your private drama, but as they actually are, flawed, noble, contradictory, struggling, and beautiful in their full humanity. 3. Study character in this perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Small, unseen moments. True character is revealed not in grand declarations but in tiny, often unnoticed decisions. In the Stoic view, a man's virtue or lack thereof is not proven on the stage of public opinion, but in the quiet theater of private conduct. To understand who someone truly is, you must develop an almost sacred attentiveness to the small hidden moments of their lives. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. How do they act when they believe there are no consequences? How do they behave when kindness would go unnoticed? How do they handle the frustrations of daily life, the waiter's delay, the child's mistake, the misfortune that cannot be blamed on anyone? Aristotle observed that we are what we repeatedly do. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Therefore, observe the repetitions. The friend who consistently shows patience with others, even when annoyed, is not performing. The business partner who quietly honors small agreements without fanfare reveals an internal consistency that no public vow can counterfeit. Similarly, the individual who is cruel when they believe they are safe, who scorns the weak, or who grows careless when unobserved, exposes a fracture in their soul that no amount of charm can mend. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Develop the patience to observe the long arc of behavior. In an age addicted to immediacy, This patience becomes a superpower. People can disguise their intentions for a day, a week, even a year. But time unmasks all things. As Socrates taught, be slow to fall into friendship, but when thou art in, continue firm and constant. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Apply the same wisdom to all human judgment. Wait, watch, see how they treat the powerless, the invisible, the inconvenient. There, in those unseen moments, their true nature is quietly inevitably revealed. 4. Governing yourself to understand others. Perhaps the most difficult lesson of all is this. Your ability to read others is directly proportional to your ability to govern yourself. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. If you are easily triggered, if your emotions cloud your judgment, if your pride blinds your perception, then no amount of observation will save you from misunderstanding. Seneca warned, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom here means the freedom to see clearly, to think purely, to act wisely. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. The ungoverned soul sees what it fears, what it craves, what it hates, not what is truly there. The disciplined soul, by contrast, sees the world as a surgeon sees the human body, without illusions, without unnecessary sentimentality, but also without cruelty. When you have mastered your own reactivity, when you have calmed the storms of pride, fear, envy, and anger, you will find that the masks people wear become thin and transparent before your eyes. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. You will not be deceived by loudness mistaken for confidence, nor by humility paraded as manipulation. You will recognize sincerity not because you wish it to be so, but because it quietly, inevitably matches the slow, steady patterns you have learned to discern. Self-mastery is the foundation of all true understanding. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Govern your desires, and you will not be fooled by flattery. Govern your anger, and you will not misread challenge as insult. Govern your pride, and you will not mistake submission for loyalty. Every act of self-discipline polishes the lens through which you see others. And as you master this art, you become not only a clearer observer, but a wiser, steadier soul, one whom others will trust without knowing why. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Reading others is not a parlor trick nor a weapon of manipulation. It is a sacred practice of attention, patience, and wisdom. In learning to see others clearly, you learn also to see yourself. And in mastering both, you walk through the world unshaken, undeceived, awake. Begin today. Speak less, observe more. Empty your assumptions. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice. Pay reverent attention to the small, quiet details. And above all, discipline your mind until it becomes a mirror clear enough to reflect reality itself. If you are ready to live with clarity, courage, and unbreakable discernment, join us at Stoic Thrive. Subscribe, step into the ancient stream of wisdom, and thrive where others stumble blind. This perspective invites us to slow down, reflect more deeply, and recognize hidden truths that usually escape our notice.